Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live. Today is Sunday, June 22nd, the final visit weekend before the dead period. It's here. Actually, it's over. It's pretty much over. We've got the last couple hours of the contact period before the dead period starts tonight at midnight. You guys all know what the dead period means. Basically, no face-to-face. So we got to clear campus. Anybody that's on campus today has to be off campus here in a couple hours. And then we get into the dead period, which is the least thing from dead. We all know that. You're allowed to text. You're allowed to make phone calls. You're allowed to do everything except have face-to-face on-campus contact. So we're going to see some big commitments. Hell, we've already seen some big commitments just from this weekend. We're going to hit on the biggest commitments, the biggest visits of the weekend. We had Savion Hyder at Tennessee, Tyler Atkinson at Texas, Manny Iheanacho is at Oregon this weekend, Cedarian Morgan at Alabama. You guys let me know. What do you think were the biggest visits of the weekend? Let me know in the chat. Also, how are we liking these live shows? I've been doing them this whole month. Every Sunday of this month, we've been going live on this channel for the Inside Scoop. I think it's been great for these visit recaps. I wonder what you guys think as well. I don't know, though, if I'm going to do them in July and August. Maybe bring them back at the end of August for the season. Maybe do them all season long, just like this on Sundays. I appreciate you guys hanging out. We've had a blast. Make sure whenever we go live, if you guys are subscribed, hit subscribe for me. You'll get those notifications. We went live 4 times last week just for commitments. So every time we pop up for a live commitment, you're going to get notified. Every time we pop up for a live show, you're going to get notified. Go ahead, hit subscribe for me, please. So let's take a look at the top 10. This has changed so much from the weekend. The only thing that hasn't changed is USC in that top spot, but everything else has changed. A&M moved up this weekend after landing Brandon Arrington. Notre Dame gets 2 outstanding players in their secondary, and we're going to talk about it. They move up. LSU moves down. Ohio State moves down, I think, 2 spots. Georgia moves down a spot or 2. Oregon moves up a spot or 2. I think they were at 9. They're now at 7. Clemson moves down 1 spot. Alabama moves up 1 spot. Miami moves into the top 10. They were sitting at number 12 heading into the weekend. So a ton of changes. And some of it had to do with the commitments we saw this weekend. Running back Jonathan Brown to Michigan, J.J. Finch to Alabama, Tristan Givens to A&M, Vodney Cleveland to Texas, Bo Bentley to Oklahoma, Joey O'Brien to Notre Dame, Kerry Adams to Notre Dame, Jet Washington, 5-star off the board to Oregon. And just moments ago, we got a huge flip. Georgia flips Shadarius Tootle from Auburn. So let's bring in Jake Rowe, Dogs HQ. Jake just posted the story. Now he's on the Inside Scoop. Jake, Georgia really needed a quality linebacker. They get one in Shadarius Tootle, but how are they able to flip him from Auburn?
You know, it's one of those deals, man. It's just kind of chipping away at it, right? And I got to give Steve Wiltfong a lot of credit here. When Shadarius Tootle took an official visit to Georgia weeks and weeks ago, I think Steve went ahead and made a pick because that's kind of where the information was leaning at the time. And Steve, for all of the folks out there that want to talk about RPMs and predictions in today's day and age, Steve does a wonderful job, both him and Chad both, of kind of giving you finding different ways to give you an up-to-date recruitment idea of that recruitment. So Georgia got there. Auburn seemed to kind of steady things back up, but Georgia just kind of kept chipping away, kept kind of going after this one. They're also in the mix for Nick Abrams, and that they want to take at least 2 inside linebackers in this class. That's kind of the norm for Glenn Schumann. That's why that room looks the way it does, with so much talent in there. But they wanted Tootle, and they just kind of kept letting him know it, and that still matters in today's college football recruiting landscape. I know that the money and ridiculous money can come in at the last minute and render it all useless. But, the relationships, the chipping away, the consistency, it does still matter. And that mattered here in this situation for Georgia. Georgia's got a lot to sell when it comes to inside linebackers, too.
Yeah, and Georgia just hitting their stride. Kenny Agboko committed on this channel on Tuesday. Today they land Shadarius Tootle. Tomorrow we're going to have another commitment. Kamari Brooks is going to
Yeah.
commit. It could end up going Georgia's way. Is Kamari Brooks still a priority after landing Tootle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kamari Brooks, there's a very good chance, Josh, with Georgia taking 3 edge prospects last class, and then Georgia taking the 2027 class in the state of Georgia with LaDamian Guyton and David Jacobs and those guys. There's a very good chance Georgia takes just one edge guy or true edge guy in this class. Now, we all know they'd love to add Tyler Atkinson, which Tyler Atkinson is kind of a Jalen Walker player. He can play some edge. He plays some off-ball linebacker. Georgia would love to kind of structure it that way, I'm sure. But yeah, Kamari Brooks is a very big-time priority for Georgia. Alabama, listen, they've done a tremendous job. Christian Robinson, Georgia grad, played linebacker at Georgia, was a graduate assistant at Georgia. He is a phenomenal recruiter, and he's done a really good job keeping Alabama alive in that one. But it seems the closer we get, unless something really changes, that Georgia's in a good spot there.
Speaking of Georgia being in a good spot, let's talk about a prospect that was on campus or currently still is on campus, running back Jay Lamar. Coming off that Miami visit, there was some smoke that the Canes were in a really good spot, but back in Athens this weekend, Jay Lamar seems like a priority for the Bulldogs. What do you think coming out of this one?
This one's tough because, there was a time where Jay Lamar was telling anybody and everybody that Georgia was his leader, right? Like he was the guy that, you felt really good about 3 or 4 months ago, so much to the point of, hey, who are we going to get, talking from the fan perspective, who are we going to get to go with Jay Lamar as far as running back in this class? Can you get Savion Hyder? Can you get Derek Cooper? Well, Jay Lamar has risen to the top of a lot of people's running back board at this point, and he is very much respected and appreciated as far as, running backs in this class. So, I do think Georgia will be tough to beat here. I heard a little bit of buzz out of this official visit, not a ton, that Georgia has kind of made a move and has got some things going in the right direction. But listen, Miami loves this kid, and we've seen what Miami will do when it loves a guy. And Jay Lamar's one of those. So, I suspect that him and Derek Cooper are probably going to end up going in 2 different directions. And seems like the same 2 schools might be in the best shape to land those 2 guys.
Yeah, it does feel that way. Now, is running back Amari Latimer still a priority if Lamar jumps on board?
Josh, that's something time's going to tell us, I think. What is Georgia going to do with this running back situation? Because, they've got a bigger running back room than they normally have right now. Just the one that exists on campus, I think, is like 7 or 8 deep, and normally they're at like 5. So how are they going to handle that? Now, they went into the transfer portal this past year, and they got the kid Josh McCray from Illinois. He's an Alabama native, and they pulled him out of there. So I could totally see Georgia getting Jay Lamar or Derek Cooper, or whoever they decide to get, and just being like, all right, let's see how the running back position shakes out on our campus throughout the season, and look at the portal whenever it comes around, if the portal is needed. Because if Nate Frazier and Nate Frazier's going to be, he's got eligibility left coming back. Bo Walker was a big surprise for spring practice. Roderick Robinson's trying to come back from another injury. They've got Chauncey Bowens, they've got Dwight Phillips. If they get the feeling throughout the season that all of those guys are going to stick around, they may or may not need another running back. Or if they get the feeling they do need one, transfer portal's right there, and you can kind of get a guy that may be a little bit more of a known commodity when it comes to receiving out of the backfield, running between the tackles, all of that stuff. They don't have a lot of attrition built in at that position for the moment.
All right. So with the addition of Tootle, does that signify anything in terms of where Georgia feels they stand with Tyler Atkinson?
No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, Texas is involved there, and we all know Texas is a behemoth as far as recruiting goes, and as far as the NIL space goes. They took one from Georgia late last class in Justice Terry, and that Texas is to be respected. But with that said, Tyler Atkinson raved about his official visit to Georgia. He's long been a big time priority of Georgia. Georgia's got a ton to sell here. I mean, flip on the tape of Jalen Carter. This guy's a clone. He's probably a better off-ball linebacker and every bit as good as an edge rusher as Jalen Carter. He's a phenomenal talent. Georgia really wants him. I'm sure it's going to be a very tough battle. But Georgia was taking Shadarius Tootle, 5-6 weeks ago. They're taking Shadarius Tootle now. They would take him in 5-6 more weeks. I don't think it really has anything to do with Tyler Atkinson, because Georgia does want at least 2 off-ball linebackers in this class.
All right. Well, a huge weekend for Georgia. Probably only getting started. Go check out Dogs HQ for more. Jake Rowe, busy day on the site. Thank you for dropping by the Inside Scoop.
Anytime, Josh. Appreciate you, buddy.
Georgia fans, how we feeling? Who could be next? Is it going to be Kamari Brooks? Let us know in the chat. All right, we are going to head to Ann Arbor. Let's bring in EJ Holland of the Wolverine. EJ, what does it mean that Savion Hyder was on a visit to Tennessee and Michigan landed a running back, Jonathan Brown? What does it mean for the Savion? I mean, is this a replacement? Does this signify how Michigan feels on Hyder? What's going on here?
No, it has nothing to do with Hyder. This is one Michigan was working on behind the scenes. They just wanted to make sure they had all their ducks in a row. Now, Jonathan Brown, not really a hot commodity or a guy that, recruiting fans will really know or Michigan fans will really know. Didn't announce his offer or anything. He actually camped with Michigan twice. He went to one of their satellite camps in Detroit and then made it to an on-campus camp. He measured in at 6'1", 200 pounds, posted a 40-inch vertical, ran a 4.55 40 laser time. So those testing numbers really propelled him into that 2 spot. Michigan always planned to take 2 running backs this cycle. If you remember early on, they were trying to sell the Sonic and Knuckles package duo of Javian Osborne and Savion Hyder. But I always thought that it was going to be difficult to land a high-profile running back along with Savion Hyder, or even a really good running back along with Savion Hyder. Everybody knows Hyder is the guy at running back for Michigan. So again, it was going to be very, very difficult to land any type of significant ball carrier. So I think with Jonathan Brown, you get a guy who, again, posted those testing times. He's high upside. He gives you someone in that room. If you miss on Hyder, you have a high upside guy. You can work back on some of the other running back targets you missed on because the Hyder cloud was hanging over Michigan. And if you land Hyder, you have a project running back to work with alongside him. So again, has nothing to do with how they were feeling with Savion Hyder. They just really liked this kid at camp. Most of the other running back targets went off the board. So they are still full steam, all in. They are still very, very optimistic in Ann Arbor about where they sit with Savion Hyder.
Are you optimistic? I mean, this weekend is the Tennessee official visit. His Michigan visit now a little bit in the rear view as we head into this dead period. How are you feeling about where Michigan stands with Hyder?
I'm still very optimistic. I mean, I still think it's Michigan and Tennessee. I think Ohio State is really faded here. I think Georgia, I got to listen to a little bit of Jake Rowe there. Looks like they have some other options at running back. So, yeah, I mean, I still feel like it's Michigan, Tennessee. And look, Hyder's not going to commit off a visit high to Tennessee. They have a very calculated plan. They're going to go back. They're going to sit down in Virginia and talk about the next steps. They're probably going to take a few weeks to kind of mold things over, take a break from what has been a very strenuous official visit season for the Hyder family. And I've been told that the plan is to make a decision in late July, maybe even August. So I don't think Hyder is anywhere near making a decision in the interim. I don't expect him to pop tomorrow or next week or even the week after that. So I don't really think it matters. I think he's going to let the visits marinate. And again, I still feel pretty optimistic, and those around Michigan still feel very optimistic here with Jonathan Brown. Again, they just wanted to have, a bird in the hand.
Yeah. And we're going to get an update from Tennessee on Savion Hyder here later in the show. But there's a couple more elite prospects on campus. Edge Carter Meadows made it in. We know this is kind of a Big Ten battle. Where do you think Michigan stands after this visit?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking more with Carter Meadows going into the visit. I felt really optimistic about Michigan's chances. I think Michigan did a really good job this weekend of continuing to sell, offering the best of both worlds. If you remember last cycle, Michigan landed 5-star offensive lineman Andrew Babalola. They put together a really strong NIL package for Babalola, but for him, it came more down to the fact that Michigan had elite development along with an elite education. And it's very important for Carter Meadows to have that combination. From speaking to his parents, they're more academics than they are football fans. He goes to one of the best high schools on the East Coast or even nationally in Gonzaga. Michigan has pulled prospects out of there in the past. Kainoa Winston, Evan Link. So, I think schools like Ohio State, they're in a little bit of desperation mode. You saw that Luke Wafel recruitment kind of get them ramped up there. They lost them to USC. I'm sure that Ohio State is planning to go all in on Meadows with some type of NIL package. But will it matter to the Meadows family, who has long made it clear that education is the most important thing for the family? So I'm not sure. Penn State was also involved in that Luke Wafel recruitment that saw his dramatic turn to USC. They have his brother on the roster, Owen Wafel, who was actually a former Michigan defensive lineman. So, Penn State is going to ramp things up with Carter Meadows as well. So I think, it's definitely a 3-team battle here with South Carolina on the outside looking in. But I really feel like if the Meadows family stays true to what they've been saying all cycle, that it's education and development, I think Michigan can win out.
One more question. All right. We saw Brady Smigiel was on campus. Always great to see your committed quarterback there, especially when you got Calvin Russell on campus. Now, Calvin Russell from South Florida has been taking visits. We know the Miami Hurricanes, Florida Gators, Florida State Seminoles are all trying to hold him in state, but he looks like one that could get out of the Sunshine State. What do you think of Michigan and Calvin Russell? And did it help that Brady was on campus with him?
I think it helped that Brady was on campus with him because they share the same agent. But I think it was more important to get Calvin Russell in front of Bryce Underwood. Bryce is the future at the quarterback position. And Bryce was with Calvin Russell throughout the visit. They took some photos together with Sharon Moore in the big house. Bryce was actually, in an Instagram post helping Calvin Russell carry his things into the big house to take that photo. So, Bryce Underwood is the big selling point. Again, I think Brady Smigiel helps because they share the same agent. He's in the same class. But it's clear Bryce Underwood is the future. He's already the face of the program for the most part. And if you're Michigan, you needed to sell Calvin Russell on two things that didn't have to do with NIL. One is playing with Bryce Underwood and knowing that you can come in with a former 5-star quarterback and things are going to look different at that position from last year where Michigan had plenty of struggles at the quarterback position. And number two, buying into the new offense, the fact that it's supposed to be more balanced. They're supposed to throw the ball more under new offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey. I think Michigan did really hone in on those two factors. I think the fact that Russell's agent was with him on the visit means Michigan did talk business, did talk numbers, and you have to with a guy like Calvin Russell, especially considering the other schools involved from Oregon to LSU to Miami. All of those schools are very willing to play the NIL game, especially at the wide receiver position. LSU has the lead on the On3 recruiting prediction machine, but they already have a handful of other receivers committed. He's a Miami legacy. His mother's in the Track Hall of Fame at Miami, but it doesn't seem like it's a slam dunk for the Hurricanes coming out of his OV there last weekend. So the door is open for Michigan to say, hey, come play with Bryce Underwood. We'll put together a really big NIL package. And on top of that, you can be the focal point of the offense. As a true freshman, we need wide receiver help. You can come be the guy here. So, I think this visit definitely helped Michigan, but looking forward to gathering more information over the next 24 hours.
All right, EJ Holland with the Wolverine big visit weekend up there in Ann Arbor. Thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop.
Yeah, appreciate it, Josh.
From one big visit weekend to another, let's talk some Notre Dame recruiting. Let's bring in Mike Singer here. Mike, the weekend started with a bang. Joey O'Brien, number 40 overall prospect, commits to the Irish. Not far behind him, Kerry Adams, number 67 overall. We are talking the elite of the elite committing to the Irish. What's going on in South Bend, Mike Singer?
They're getting all their targets. Josh, this is a run for Notre Dame that we have not seen before. Like, thinking back to last year, Notre Dame would have a lot of top targets on campus and unable to close with some of these like just elite prospects, some of the drama-filled recruitments Notre Dame unable to land some of those guys last year, especially at the receiver position. Well, that's just not the case right now. They're basically getting everybody, like the Michigan running back commit, like that the Wolverines just got. Sometimes you do have to go down the board and take some of those guys. Notre Dame is pretty much getting all of their top targets right now. I've been covering Notre Dame for 6 years, which is not the longest time in the world, Josh, but it's also not an insignificant amount of time. 6 years is a good chunk of time to cover recruiting. This run they're on right now is by far the best that I've seen. I mean, look, Ben Morrison just went in the second round. That's an elite cornerback. Leonard Moore is going to be a future first-round pick too. Like Mike Mickens has done a tremendous job, specifically at the corner position and in the past few years as Notre Dame's DB's coach. But those guys were like high 3-star, low 4-star type guys. Now you're getting the two that you just mentioned, who that may come in as corners, by the way, and they're like between 6'2" and 6'4", like top 50 type talents, along with Aiden Pouncey, who's an elite guy, and Chasten Smith, who picked Notre Dame over Clemson and Texas A&M in December. This is just a different level than we're used to seeing at Notre Dame. It's not like the developmental guys. We'll land a few top 100 players, but that's about it. Notre Dame is just really racking it up right now. That national championship appearance is kind of showing proofs in the pudding with Marcus Freeman. Like, there's no more, hey, this is what we're going to be in a couple years. This is what we are right now.
Yeah. And there's two more uncommitted targets on campus. Offensive tackle Charlie, is it Thom? Or
Charlie Tom. Yeah, Charlie Tom.
Charlie Tom, and defensive lineman Elijah Golden. Any more commitments coming this weekend?
I don't know about this weekend specifically, but I'm going to kind of go back to what I was just saying. Notre Dame's right now, let me just go to this real quick, Josh. My coworker Kyle Kelly did an article, and it was looking at all the uncommitted official visitors that Notre Dame's had in the Marcus Freeman era. How many actually commit to the Irish? So you enter June as an uncommitted target. How many commit to Notre Dame? It was about 35 to 40%. Somewhere around there. That's the amount of guys that Notre Dame was landing, the uncommitted June official visitors. They may be at like 85 to 90% for all of their guys. So they had 9 uncommitted guys last week. Notre Dame, for that June 13th weekend, that is. I think Notre Dame may get between 7 to 9, so 7 or 9, all of them. And then 2 uncommitted guys, Charlie Tom. His mom graduated from Notre Dame. He's a developmental offensive tackle, but Notre Dame's got 5 other offensive linemen already. So you could definitely take maybe the chance isn't the right word, but you could take a swing on him. He's got some kind of Joe Alt traits to him as a tight end turned offensive tackle. And then Elijah Golden. I like Notre Dame to beat Alabama for that 4-star defensive lineman in the Sunshine State. Hearing tremendous things about how his visit went. So yeah, this Notre Dame class, it's looking like it's got the potential to be their first top 5 class, and I think it does in years.
It really does. That's what we've been talking about. Is it going to be top 5 or is it going to be top 3? Now, we're going to go to Texas next. We got a lot of Texas fans in the chat right now, so we can't wait to get there. But speaking of Texas, have you been keeping an eye on that Caden Finley visit this weekend?
Oh, yeah, Notre Dame fans have been as well. I'm going to hang on and listen to what Justin Wills has to say, because I'm hearing positive buzz about where Notre Dame's at after that Texas visit. And it's been interesting, Josh. You've covered recruiting for such a long time. It's like when it looks like a 2-horse race, not to discount Texas A&M or UCLA, but it really does seem to be between Notre Dame and Texas. And it's like, this side feels good. This side feels good. Well, which one is it? I think we're starting to get a better sense that Texas feels like they may have more work to do. Notre Dame has been uber confident for months now. He visited unofficially like 10 days before his Notre Dame official visit just to hang out with the players, comes back. I think that Notre Dame is where Finley wants to be. Just that Texas pull with him being a legacy and it's in-state and all those things. I think that's very strong. But I think Notre Dame wins out. It's where he wants to be at the end of the day. That's at least my read, but we'll see what Justin has to say.
Yeah, well, Notre Dame fans, you guys are the real experts. Get in the chat. How do you think the Irish finished this class? Who are the most important targets? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Mike Singer, it's going to be a busy day over on Blue and Gold. Thank you for dropping by the Inside Scoop.
Anytime, Josh.
All Right. Notre Dame is absolutely on fire, from one on fire program to another. Let's head to Austin. We're going to talk Texas Longhorn recruiting with Justin Wells. Vodney Cleveland committed this weekend. It's already on fire. You tell me, anybody else leaning in the Longhorns' direction coming out of this weekend?
Yeah, there's a handful of guys that we were kind of expecting. We thought Texas was in a great spot for, and it turns out they're in a tremendous spot for. So I think they did pretty well with a number of these guys. This is the final weekend. Texas only held 3 of these, and they wanted to be efficient. They wanted to do this as narrow as possible, and I think that's what makes these things special. There's a handful of guys. This was the weekend where they had most of the commitments come in, so they wanted to make sure everyone had a family type atmosphere and culture, and kind of sell, hey, this is what you're going to be playing with. These are the guys you're going to be bonding with. This is the group you're going to be coming in with. And so I think in some cases they completely solidified themselves as a major threat in the recruitment. And others, I think there's some work to be done.
And this weekend, speaking of work to be done, Tyler Atkinson was on campus. It's debatable how much work was really needed to be done with Tyler Atkinson. But what's the vibe coming out of this weekend? And I know, there's going to be a lot of talk all week about Atkinson, but what are you hearing?
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of that. So let's just kind of set the baseline. Obviously, he's been hanging out in Austin for the last month, working out with former Texas Longhorn linebacker Derek Johnson. That was a significant, development, because for the longest, Texas and Tyler haven't really been talking that much. He came in last year during the Texas-Georgia game for an unofficial. He liked Austin. But once the junior days and the spring visits and all that started to come around, there just wasn't a lot of back and forth with Tyler and with Texas. Texas trying to kind of revive that since he had been around in Austin. And so they thought, you know what, they're going to shoot their shot with one of the top prospects in the country. And here's the thing. Tyler's a phenomenal athlete, and he's also an incredible kid. I got to actually see him when I went to go cover Grayson last October. Great father, great family. This is a guy that plays with an intensity, plays with he's an instant impact type of guy. But let's just be real. This is going to be a very big recruitment, especially in the NIL department. When you have talent like this, it's the price tag tends to go up a little bit. And we know that Georgia has been out front. We know how good they look there. We know Ohio State's been in the mix. They have his attention. Oregon's another school that he's high up on. And so Texas has a mountain to climb here, because, again, they were kind of, reviving this recruitment, kind of trying to get back into it. The truth be known, we're still trying to figure out exactly the read here. We know he liked Texas. We talked to a couple of people this weekend that were around him. We know he enjoyed the visit. It's hard not to. It's hard not to get caught up in that. But right now, it's going to be a lot of wait and see, I think, with Atkinson, because his recruitment, there's a lot of schools that are in the mix, and he doesn't tip his hand to too much. But I do think people need to be prepared. When it comes to an elite type guy, the price tag's going to be a little high. And I think that's kind of where this recruitment's going to be. Not all of them are like that. And I don't think it's based solely off of NIL, but NIL is going to be a major factor in that recruitment.
Absolutely. We know NIL is going to be a major factor for Atkinson. We don't think he's going to come off the board anytime soon. Or do you think that's changed? Are we expecting a decision in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months? What do you think for Atkinson?
I think Tyler might play it out a little bit longer. I don't have a decision date from him. I haven't talked to him. I think Tyler plays it out a little bit. Maybe Texas makes him slow down the process a little bit. They don't really push. Maybe he gets their attention. Maybe Georgia comes through with a big offer and knocks him out. Oregon does the same thing. I think he's going to let it play out a little bit, but that remains to be seen. We want to catch up with him. We want to talk to him and his father and kind of get an idea of where that's at and kind of see kind of where Texas fits in. I believe they're actually headed to the airport here in the next, hour or so. And so there's going to be plenty of people out there ready to talk to him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he plays this thing out a little bit more through the summer. I think he'll make a decision before the beginning of his senior year, but I think he might take July and August to really finalize the decision, make an announcement, and pick his school.
Mm-hmm. All right. We got Notre Dame fans waiting to hear what you have to say about Texas visitor Caden Finley, wide receiver out of the state of Texas, was with the Horns this weekend, but we know he's trending to Notre Dame. Can Texas stop that?
Yes and no. It's one of those. Okay. Sorry, I just got a text from a prospect. Texas has some work to do. Texas has some work. But look, they knew that going into this. Notre Dame has looked fantastic in this recruitment. They have done a tremendous job in building this relationship, showing him how he fits. I mean, he's essentially an analog to Jaden Greathouse, who's most of the Fighting Irish know and love. And so I think Finley, here's the thing. I think he envisions himself at either place. I think he could see himself playing at Notre Dame and he could see himself playing at Texas. I think along the way, Notre Dame has just done an amazing job. Not all in-state kids in Texas, wind up at Texas, want to go to Texas. Sometimes they'll, in every recruitment's different. Sometimes some players will, it's similar to like a Greathouse, similar to like a Javian Osborne. Sometimes they see other schools, they see South Bend, and they really like that tradition. That's a beautiful place, an amazing campus. Marcus Freeman's one of the best coaches in the country. They're coming off a national title, a runner-up season. They're only going to get better. You heard Mike Singer talking about a lot of the guys they have coming back. And so I just think Texas has more work to do here. He's got a July 4th announcement. I think Texas did a good job in this visit, but I think there's still more to do there. Whereas with Notre Dame pretty much has their pitch sold, and it's basically, okay, we're ready for when you're ready to announce, we're ready to announce type deal. Texas loves Finley. They absolutely do. And there's a draw there with the Texas legacy, his dad being Jermichael Finley. But at the end of the day, not all in-state kids wind up at Texas that were born and raised in Texas. We reported a couple days ago, we think Jalen Lott's trending out of state. That's another Texas legacy. He's looking more at USC and Oregon. Caden Finley could be the same way. They're going to do more. They have more work here to do. I think Notre Dame has the lead in this recruitment, but I don't think it's quite done yet. Let's see what Texas can do before that July 4th announcement.
All right, last question I got for you. We know that Texas is doing what it takes to address that defensive line position. I mean, just look at Vodney Cleveland commits this weekend over the Florida Gators. Now you got James Johnson. He's the number one defensive lineman from the state of Florida, or in the state of Florida, and he was at Miami last weekend, and now he's at Texas this weekend. James J.J. Johnson, one of the most coveted defensive linemen in America. Did Texas do enough this weekend?
They did enough to get his attention. That's for sure. And this is another one that's kind of similar to Atkinson, except Johnson actually came in April for an unofficial visit. Texas has stayed close in this recruitment, but they've already nailed 3 of these defensive linemen in this class with Vodney Cleveland jumping in yesterday. Talking to a source, they're only going to bring in one more. There's one more guy on the. They're gonna be hold steady at 4. Jamian Winfield has been on the top of the board forever. That's the USC commit out of Richardson. He has been pretty rigid to get him off of that. He looks like he is going to wind up in Southern Cal, at least at this moment. And so James Johnson became a priority. But also remember, Texas did a great job with another Sunshine State defensive lineman that they really like this weekend, Kendall Guerville. And so I think that's kind of going to be the battle. Are they going to take Guerville, or are they going to push more for Johnson? Obviously, I think Johnson could be a numbers buster in a lot of cases. But again, I think the number's 4. They're already up to 3. They love where they're sitting with Guerville right now. But again, Johnson could be a numbers buster. They move the needle a little bit. They got his attention. I think the biggest thing is going to be pulling him out of Florida, out of some of those big three schools there in the Sunshine State. That one's going to be tough, but they're only going to get one more. They're only going to take one more. And I think right now I would lean towards Guerville being the guy that jumps in this class compared to Johnson, but they definitely move the needle with Johnson, and I can't wait to catch up with him and see how that visit went.
All right, big visit weekend inside Texas. Has it all. Justin Wells, you've been breaking news left and right. Appreciate you taking a little time out of your Sunday to drop by the Inside Scoop. All right, Texas recruiting is hot. Justin Wells getting intel coming to his phone as we speak. That's why I love these Sunday shows. Now we are going to go out to Tuscaloosa. We got to talk some Alabama recruiting. I know it was a big visit weekend because we saw Nick Saban on campus. Haven't seen Nick Saban a whole lot this offseason when it comes to helping out recruiting. What was the reaction this weekend to the GOAT showing up in T-Town?
Well, I think there was good reaction, at least from the Alabama side. You saw a lot of fans on social media, on BOL, really excited to see Coach back on campus, especially when you have 3 in-state 5-stars, the top 3 players in the state on campus who are all currently uncommitted. And, a lot of people look at that as, well, they brought in the big guns to help recruit on this final weekend. But, one thing I don't think a lot of people realize is Kalen DeBoer wasn't on campus on Saturday. He was in Mississippi for Keelan Russell's sister's funeral. So, having Coach Saban over there on Saturday, I don't know if he was over there just because Kalen DeBoer wasn't there, but being there when Coach DeBoer wasn't there was certainly a big plus for Alabama. And then you have 3 guys who are on campus: Xavier Kroll, number 2 running back in the country; Cedarian Morgan, 5-star wide receiver; Tank Jones, 5-star edge rusher. These are guys who all grew up as Alabama fans. I mean, their entire life, all they've known about is Nick Saban and the success of the Alabama football program. So, being around Coach Saban, and really for the first time, these guys had not had a chance or an opportunity to really spend time speaking to him, or they never really got recruited by him. Tank Jones did meet him a couple years ago, but Cedarian Morgan wasn't offered by Alabama before Coach Saban's retirement. Xavier Kroll, same thing. So this was a good opportunity for those guys to be around him, talk to him about the program and what the University of Alabama can do for them. But it seemed like they had a great experience. We've got a couple commitment dates set with Kroll announcing his commitment on Thursday. Cedarian Morgan is going to be announcing on July the 2nd. Tank does not have a commitment date set quite yet, but he should be announcing probably sometime in July. We'll wait to see what his decision date ends up being.
All right. So with Morgan and Crowell having dates, do you feel better that Alabama lands both of them or none of them?
I think Alabama will at least land one. I think they'll have a really good chance to land 2. With Kroll announcing on Thursday, Alabama's been the favorite for him since day one, pretty much. And he took the visit this weekend. He kind of planned it out that way, that he wanted to give Alabama the final trip. Was in Tuscaloosa multiple times during the spring, not just for one day. Each visit he went on was multiple days. And I think they're in really good position heading into the announcement on Thursday. Now, with Cedarian Morgan, he has been a lot of different places this month: Florida, Auburn, Georgia, Colorado. He's got some schools that are really putting forth a strong effort to try to pull him out of the state of Alabama. We know they're offering some really good NIL packages. Now, I think this weekend for Alabama is what was the conversations like in that regard? How strong were they going to go? How important is that going to be in the final decision? He's an Alabama fan, family Alabama fans. He's an in-state kid. So, can that have a little bit more of an impact on his commitment? So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But him spending some time with Ryan Williams and a lot of the other guys on campus this weekend, certainly a big plus. And he's been to Tuscaloosa just about as much as anywhere else. So it's going to come down to the wire. And I think that Alabama is certainly heavy on his mind, but there's some other contenders still in the race.
All right. And as Sunday, it's full of action. So no surprise that Bama lands J.J. Finch, defensive lineman out of Indiana, as this show was loading up. Now, I'm looking at Alabama's commit list. Only 8 commits so far, so we know a flurry is coming. 2 on the defensive line. How many do they want to take on the defensive line, and is there any top targets that are identified right now?
Yeah, I think they love their defensive line commitment, especially the interior guys, Camarion Johnson from Muscle Shoals, who committed a few months ago and shut down his recruitment after the official visit with Miami, Auburn, Ole Miss really pressing to try to flip him away from Alabama. Of course, then you have J.J. Finch announcing his decision this weekend. This was a guy that they've heavily coveted since earlier this year. Received an offer in January, came in Tuscaloosa for the first day of spring practice, and really ever since then they've been making a strong push. Michigan, Tennessee, LSU. Those are some schools that he was very high on, and there was a lot of confidence coming out of the Tennessee side last week after his official visit in Knoxville. Took a visit down to Miami this weekend, but I think going into the weekend, he knew where he wanted to go. Give a lot of credit to Freddie Rhodes, the defensive line coach, for doing a great job recruiting him throughout the process. But as far as remaining defensive linemen, they certainly want to add a few more. Yeah, this was priority number one for them heading into this 2026 cycle. They have some big names that are still out there. Titan Davis out of St. Louis should be announcing here relatively soon. He took his final visit to Michigan this weekend. Alabama, Michigan, been the top two for a while, been battling it out. And, we have heard that, he's going to make a decision shortly after the Michigan trip. But Alabama's got a strong chance to land him. Tank Jones, as we mentioned, he's another guy that has some positional flexibility. He's 6'4.5", 250 pounds. Been recruited, as an edge guy. I can kind of see him fitting in that bandit role for Alabama if he chooses to go there. You also have Nolan Wilson out of Mississippi, who has listed Alabama as his front runner for several months. But there's also some schools really fighting hard to get him. Auburn, Miami, where he was this weekend, and Ole Miss. So that's a recruitment that we're going to be watching closely. Elijah Golden is still out there. He went to Notre Dame this weekend, visited Alabama last week. I think that's probably trending for the Irish, but Alabama would take him. They would take 5-6 defensive linemen in this class if they could. But, with the way, they have recruited these elite guys, knowing that probably all of them are expecting a good NIL package, it's going to be impossible to land them all. But I think if they can land at least 2 more of these guys over the course of the next few weeks, they're going to feel really good about their defensive line class.
All right, Andrew Bone, Bama Online. You guys got updates rolling all day. Appreciate you taking a little time to drop by the Inside Scoop.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, Bama fans, tell me, out of the 5 stars that are committing soon, Sadarian Morgan and Xavier Curl, what do you guys think? Because I kind of think Alabama lands in both, but you guys let me know in the comment section. Am I crazy, or is this summer rain about to kick in and we're going to see a flurry of commitments? Let us know. Comment section below. All right. I want to talk Oregon Ducks big visit weekend. There it is. Let's bring in Max Torres from Scoop Duck. And Max, the fireworks already got started because 2 days ago, 5-star safety Jet Washington committed. Ducks moving up close to a top 5 class right now. And they got more 5 stars on campus. It's Manny Ihenacho visit weekend. What are you hearing coming out of this one?
Yeah, Manny Ihenacho is absolutely one of Oregon's top targets here in the 2026 class, and one that's becoming more and more important for this staff. You see Dan Lanning knocking out some push-ups there with the 5-star tackle out of Baltimore. And the reason I think he's becoming more important, Josh, is because of where we've seen Oregon's other offensive tackle prospects land in this 2026 class. So as those guys have kind of flown off the board over the past couple months, Manny Ihenacho has continued to climb up Oregon's board and really been a major priority for this staff. So, I think that Oregon's in a good spot here, rather, with Manny Ihenacho. The big development just this morning was that they offered his younger brother, Michael Ihenacho, a 2028 offensive tackle out of the state of Maryland as well. So you have to wonder, maybe is Oregon kind of trying to throw that one in to maybe sweeten the deal a little bit, offer the chance for both of those brothers to play their college ball together, depending, of course, on Manny's development. He might be on that NFL track. That's what people probably think. So I think that's the main development, I guess, that we're tracking here. And also just wondering, is this a recruitment, Josh, that we could see speed up? Because he's supposed to come off the board in early August, but I know that with official visit season winding down here, a lot of teams are trying to kind of wrap some of these top recruitments up. So that's what we'll have to keep an eye on here coming out of this weekend.
Yeah, and offering his brother, that's always a move in recruiting. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Was his brother on the visit with him?
I haven't been able to confirm that just yet, Josh, but I think it probably stands to reason that he could be out there. Most times on these official visits, prospects are joined by their entire families, coaches, agents, mentors, whatever you have it. So I haven't confirmed that one myself, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was out there as well.
Yeah, that'd kind of be a bit of a power move because they probably know they're going to offer him, but they're waiting for the moment that the family's on campus to try to kind of put an exclamation point on that. I love it. Now, speaking of being on campus, athlete Jalen Lott, we just spoke with Justin Wells, who's covering Texas from the state of Texas, and he said, Jalen Lott, look, he's probably leaving the state, and it looks like it's either USC or Oregon, but what are you hearing coming out of his big visit weekend?
Yeah, that was the main prospect that I've been hearing chatter about over this weekend, Josh. It really did seem like that one was an Oregon Texas battle for the longest time, and then yesterday I was getting some text from sources and was told that it was kind of pivoting to an Oregon USC battle, and he has taken that official visit out to Los Angeles to see the Trojans. And Oregon's been a school that's been heavily mentioned in this recruitment. We do know that NIL is going to be a factor in this recruitment as well, and Oregon and USC have been more than competitive in that department. But I'm just curious to see, how big of a priority Lott is going to be for this staff. Is he going to be someone down the line that they say, hey, this guy is a must-have in this class? There's been a ton of talk about him as a wide receiver, but I'm also told that defensive back corner might be his best position long-term. I know that USC wants him as a receiver. Sounds like there might be a little bit of wiggle room as far as position goes for this Oregon staff with Lott. Maybe he's a guy that you just have to get on campus, and then once he's on the roster, you kind of figure out where he lands. So I think that there's still some wild cards here and some stuff to figure out with Jalen Lott. Going to be coming off the board, it sounds like. Justin Hopkins said on the board earlier, July 8th is the date that we're watching for him. But Oregon's wide receiver board is really small right now, Josh. You got Messiah Hampton out of New York, who hopped in the fold earlier on this month. But aside from him, you have Jalen Lott and then Calvin Russell. And I think if I'm Oregon, I feel a lot better about holding on to a commitment from Texas than I do from Florida, given the staff's recruiting history and the program's ties to the Lone Star State. So this is going to be a really fun one to watch. We'll see if maybe track comes into play for Lott at Oregon, whether he's sprinting or jumping. I think that's something to monitor. But that's a guy that Oregon definitely wants. So we'll have to see if they can move the needle this weekend.
Yeah. Now, last question I got for you was, there's an intriguing name on campus. 4-star Cali quarterback Bryson Beaver. I saw him come in for a visit, and I just want to know, what does this mean for Rider Lions? Because we know the talk of him and BYU has been heating up, and he's coming off the board next week. So is the visit of Bryson Beaver indicative of where Oregon feels they stand with Rider Lions?
I don't think it's indicative at all, Josh. I know that this is a question that comes up quite a bit, seeing that they're in the same class, but you have the mission trip with Rider Lions, so he's a de facto 2027. I know and have repeated on on Scoop Duck with my reporting that Oregon wants a legitimate 2026 class quarterback, someone who's going to graduate and then join the team more than likely in the winter as an early enrollee. That's not Rider Lions, but that could be Bryson Beaver or Matt Ponatoski, two quarterbacks that I saw this week out in Los Angeles at the Elite 11 finals. So I don't think that this visit is indicative of where Oregon thinks they stand with Rider Lions. But of course, there's plenty of chatter there with BYU now that he's coming off the board in a couple of days. But I think Oregon really likes their chances with Beaver, as do I. That was definitely an offer that caught his attention. And I think that you love getting him on campus this soon after the visit. I'm fully expecting that he's going to be blown away by that visit. And I know that Will Stein has done a really good job with quarterbacks since he's been in Oregon. And Beaver has told me in my interviews with him that he loves what Oregon does at the quarterback position, developing guys at that spot. So I think that's one that could move pretty quickly here, Josh. But I think we'll have to continue to see what happens at the quarterback spot, specifically with Beaver, since you saw a guy like Bo Bentley come off the board over the weekend to Oklahoma. I think that there's been a little bit of chatter about LSU maybe being a school to watch with Bryson Beaver, but Oregon got him on campus, and that's super important. So I think that they're in a great spot there.
All right. We will be watching. We're going to see. I'm going to be on Scoop Duck the rest of the day. I want to know, any more quacks coming? We'll just have to wait and see, because it seems like it's been a busy weekend up in Eugene, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one that people have had circled on their calendar the whole month. You only get 3 of these official visit weekends. At least that's what Oregon did. I know that Justin was talking about that with Texas earlier. So you have some momentum going for the Ducks right now with Jet Washington hopping in the fold earlier this week, I should say. And I know this staff definitely wants to continue building that. And this was a huge weekend. You had some commits on campus as well. Kayvon Thibodeau, former first-round pick, he was in Eugene this weekend. now that he's with the Giants. So I'm sure that definitely didn't hurt their chances with some of these top prospects on campus.
All right. Max Torres with Scoop Duck. Thanks for stopping by on a massive visit weekend. A lot of news coming out, and I'll be on Scoop Duck the rest of the day checking it out. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
All right. Now we are taking a look here at the top 10 before we go to USC. You see the Trojans at number 1. They make a big move over the last couple days, especially with the addition of Luke Wafel. What a commitment that was. We're going to relive that one here in a minute with Scott Schrader. But A&M, they are making a legitimate run at this number 1 spot, landing number 1 corner Brandon Arrington on Thursday. Notre Dame up to number 3, LSU, Ohio State. Ohio State actually slid down a spot or 2 this week. Georgia falls out of the top 5. Then you got Oregon, Clemson, Alabama, and Miami is now inside that top 10. Miami was at 12 heading into the weekend. Alabama was at 10. And you just see a huge shuffle. That's what visits will do. They'll make these movements every weekend. We'll see after this one, after the dust settles, is there even more movement inside the top 10? We'll have to wait and see. But until then, let's go to USC, where we have Scott Schrader. We got him? Oh, we got Scott. All right. Scott, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Good. Here we go. Okay, so USC lands Luke Wafel the other day, and it was right here on the On3 Recruits channel. We haven't had this much excitement in a while when it comes to commitments. A lot of times, even though fans are always, hopeful, the RPMs start to go in. You never know. And even though Luke Wafel got those RPMs from Steve Wiltfong that morning, we still really didn't know. But this one went back and forth those last 48 hours. How were the Trojans able to win out?
Yeah, it started off with he and his family coming for the official visit that they had last weekend, and from there it came down to NIL, and it was reported that way, and ultimately USC figured out a 3-year deal that Luke and his family and representatives were happy with, and I think that was it. It's been a few years of USC getting dunked on, as I wrote with NIL, and I think that trend's kind of stopped with Jakeem Stewart, and we really didn't know where things were going to go with the class of 2026, but to put together the 30 commits that they currently have right now, NIL's played a huge vital part of that.
Yeah, and you kind of wrote an article. It was called "Embrace the Hate." First of all, what's the hate from? What's the hate from? What are we talking about here?
I you know what? I honestly don't know, but it's just maybe it's politics in California. Maybe it's, the Lakers, the Dodgers. No, people just typically hate winners. It's a different type of lifestyle out here in Southern California, especially. And I just remember during the Pete Carroll years when I would travel around the country. And Pete Carroll's like one of the most likable guys I've ever met, but people hated Pete Carroll, and I don't know what it's all about, but it's a real thing, and anybody denying it is kind of got their head in the sand.
So whenever USC's winning something, there's going to be some hate. Right now, I mean, they could win a little bit more on the football field, but they are beating ass, taking names on the recruiting trail. Is that where the hate's coming from?
I mean, right now it's coming. You're talking about high-profile recruits that programs like Ohio State and in this case Penn State was involved as well. And you'll get guys that Alabama and Georgia and programs like that are not considering USC to be really a factor on getting these guys, and now they are. And now the next step is obviously they're going to decommit sometime soon too, right? So there's all, and USC's paying ridiculous sums of money, and people are upset about that. That's how you win big time football now. You spend a lot of money. I mean, I don't know what people are so surprised about or so upset about. It's just this is the reality.
Yeah, it's the game is the game now. I mean, the game is NIL. The game is recruiting, and if you're not the best at the game, then you might as well just bow out now, because that's what it is. I don't understand where the anger comes from, because if you talk to any fan base individually and you call them poor, they're going to yell at you and preach to you for the next 10 minutes about how much money their program has.
Yeah.
Yet when it comes to spending money in NIL, everybody's shy, or everybody doesn't want to admit that their team spends money. It's just kind of a weird deal. So that being said, we know USC is loading up on commitments. Who are the top remaining targets at this point?
Yeah, coming into this weekend, or at least last week, there really were only 5 guys that they were thinking that they could potentially get commits from as we were ending spring and in the summertime. And now it's really down to just 3 guys. It's down to Brett Koloje, offensive lineman from IMG Academy. He's been a long time kind of friend of a few guys. Cannon Smith is committed to USC. He's from Colorado. And Breck is from Colorado, and Mark Bowman played youth football with these 2 guys in Colorado. He was actually their quarterback. So there's a close relationship with I guess the families, Bowman's family and Koloje's family, are exceptionally tight as well. So that might bode well for USC. And then the other 2 left are Jalen Lott and Boobie Feaster. And the belief is USC is going to get one of those guys. There's a prediction that's been put in for Jalen Lott. That might have been a bit premature for us to do that, knowing what we know, but USC does feel good about him. And then Boobie Feaster. So I do know that USC canceled a visit with Madden Williams, and they told him it's because they had a commit. So we'll stay tuned on who that's going to be.
All right. Well, we'll see if USC can add any more commitments this week and add some more hate to this number 1 class. I guess that's what happens when you're number 1. Scott Schrader with We Are SC. Thanks for taking a little time today on the Inside Scoop.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. From California to the Bayou, we're going to talk a little LSU recruiting. And we know they had a big visit weekend, but we got to talk about quarterback Bo Bentley. Off the board, but not in the direction that LSU fans had hoped. This one was either going to be Oklahoma or LSU. And yesterday, Bo Bentley makes the announcement he is an Oklahoma Sooner. What's next for LSU recruiting at the quarterback position, Shea Dixon?
We'll see. I think Joe Sloan is going to have to pivot here, the OC, who this dates back, Josh, obviously, to when Bryce Underwood goes to the 11th hour with LSU and flips, and they don't sign a quarterback in the past cycle. And they got on Bo Bentley, who emerges as a top 5 quarterback, given a year ago was his first year starting. And look, that part of Texas is kind of OU country. He had said he had grown up an OU fan, and it was LSU. It was OU versus the field, and LSU sort of emerged as the one team left standing. And then he made those final 2 visits, and kind of the buzz, Josh, the feeling was the further he got away from that LSU visit and the OU visit, that things might become cyclical in a way. And he goes back to where kind of he started with OU as the leader, and ultimately OU lands him. So, look, we're coming off an Elite 11 where Max Torres just a couple of spots ago at the Oregon site hinted at a guy thereafter beyond Ryder Lyons that LSU's also in the mix for. So look for uncommitted guys that kind of they've been feeling out and talking with here in recent weeks in case Bo Bentley did go elsewhere. But it also remains, hey, do they play a long game here where, remember, from Diabell to other quarterbacks in this class, LSU had those guys on campus and ultimately they commit elsewhere. Could they pull off a flip? It's the NIL era. I think you hit a little Avon Barksdale, the Wire quote there, Josh. The game is the game. So we'll see what happens in the coming months. But I don't think we're going to find out anything by way of a commitment in the coming days as the Bo Bentley dust settles at quarterback.
All right. Now let's get to the controversy. On3's number 1 athlete weighs 285 pounds. That's not the controversy.
No controversy there. No controversy there.
The controversy is Lamar Brown, his on-again, off-again visit to LSU. I was going to ask you, did Lamar Brown make it in? But we have video confirmation that Lamar Brown made it to his LSU visit. Are the Tigers the team to beat here, Shea, regardless of all this nonsense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much it's nonsense to the degree of what is nonsensical for a 17-year-old 5-star recruit. Look, he put out coming out of College Station, which I've said all along, Texas A&M is the other team in the mix here, that he wasn't going to make the official visit. Well, to LSU, that was never going to happen. You're looking at photos from the weekend. I took that one right there of Lamar out there on the field at Friday Night Lights. There, he's hanging out with Mason Smith, who obviously played D-line at LSU and plays for in the NFL now, but is close with Lamar. They brought a lot of his former teammates back, Keelan Moses, guys like that played at U High and obviously are on LSU's team now. So it was a red carpet weekend for he and his family, and this one's going to come down to LSU or A&M. I said that from the start, felt it from the start. I think his actions speak to it. While Miami, Texas, others have all been in the mix, but you saw there to lead off. He can play O-line, D-line, but he wants to play D-line, and right now LSU has a commitment from the other guy in that video, Richard Anderson, the number one defensive lineman on the On3 industry rankings coming out of Edna Carr. And LSU strategically put his official visit this weekend to be with Lamar. So if Lamar wants to play D-line, that is a hell of a 1-2 punch of 2 5-stars, which not often is Louisiana putting out 5-star D linemen maybe once every few cycles. To have a couple of them in one class is huge. And look, my On3 RPM is on LSU. It went on it early on. I haven't shifted it yet, and we've got a decision coming in July. So we'll find out in the next few weeks which way Lamar Brown ultimately goes. But yes, I think it is LSU versus A&M here.
Good to see all 3 of LSU's wide receiver commits on campus this weekend, headlined by 5-star Tristan Keys. What's been the theme of his visit weekend?
Look, the over-under, I don't know what it was set at, but there was, I think, some nervous moments there with, look, Tristan had made visits, official visits, whether it's Tennessee, A&M, Miami, all of these schools leading up to LSU. He had planned Alabama and Auburn. It looks like those might happen later on, but he comes to the LSU visit still committed. And Josh, you know how this works, but Tristan has been around LSU's campus, let's say, since 9th grade, and his coaches would always drive him in from Hattiesburg and all that. This was his mom's first chance to really have a full weekend at LSU, being around the coaches, being around the personnel side, getting a feel for kind of the college and environment Tristan would be going to. And I think based off everything that I've heard inside Tristan's camp and then here in Baton Rouge, they couldn't have asked for a better weekend. And if you want to talk NIL, you want to talk fit, you want to talk all of those things, I think every box was checked there. Now, nervous moments to come. He is the number one receiver and a 5-star for a reason, and you're not going to coast to signing day without everybody else trying to get him in the NIL era. I think LSU obviously understands that, but they got his final visit. Monday's a dead period. It lasts for 2 months, Josh? So at this point, you feel better maybe than you did when he was going through all those visits of would he come into this visit still committed? He did. And as you noted, having him on campus with Jabari Mack and Kenny Darby, who Darby led the state in receiving a year ago, Jabari Mack coming out of Destrehan is a top 50 prospect. Both those guys are committed to LSU. And it's the second time in about 3 weeks that the 3 of them have been together on LSU's campus. And this weekend now you had all 3 of their moms together. So they spent a lot of time around each other. I think that tossing Boobie Feaster, who was there over the weekend, tossing Jace Matthews, who they made a big splash with to move up the list on a midweek visit, official visit, that the goal, hold on to these 3 wide receiver commits, which can be argued as the best in the country. But can you add a 4th? And I think all eyes are on who that person might be if you can hold on to Tristan Keys and your 2 in-state receiver commits.
All right, let's leave it at this. LSU fans want to know, are you close to putting any new predictions in coming out of this weekend?
I always look at local guys first and foremost, and there were 2 kids on campus who are uncommitted still that are from Louisiana that have an offer, Des Ellis and Isaiah Washington. I'd probably be closer to Isaiah Washington. We've got him right on the cusp of a 4-star. He broke out on the track scene this spring, but a kid coming out of Haynesville who kind of a sleeper, then LSU offered, he blows up with offers, and then Des Ellis, who is juggling this idea of some schools want me to play quarterback. LSU likes me at corner. I do think that ultimately LSU can win out there for a kid from a small town like Winsboro, Louisiana, but then again, he's got options elsewhere, whether it's West Virginia or other programs that say, hey, look, you can play quarterback here. But those 2 I'm keeping a close watch on moving forward. And hey, look, we'll see what happens here with the quarterback movement and anything else. I'm not hesitant to put in an on-3 RPM or even up my confidence score on a guy like Lamar Brown, who I think had a really big weekend.
All right. Exciting weekend for LSU fans. Go check out the Bengal Tiger for more. Shay Dixon, appreciate you taking time out of this busy Sunday to come on the Inside Scoop.
The game is the game, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
That's it. Appreciate you. All right, there it is. Shea Dixon. He gets recruiting. The game is the game. I mean, how are we shaming anybody for spending money in NIL? Every one of you would say your program is rich. Go out and spend it. Who cares? It's not your, well, some people, it is their money, but probably not. All right, let's take a look at this top 10 one more time because it's been a busy weekend. We have lots of changes. The one change we don't see, a new number one, because the Trojans have that spot on lockdown. Who do you guys think is going to end up finishing number one overall? Is it going to be USC? I think they got to win some ball games this football season. They're going to maintain that spot, but I certainly think they can. But I'm looking at Ohio State. I'm looking at Georgia. Alabama, don't count them out from the number one class in America. But how about Notre Dame? Sitting there at number 3 right now, and they are not done. Unlike this show, the show is done. We appreciate you guys for stopping by on this beautiful Sunday. It's actually raining here in Nashville, but I'm sure it's beautiful where you're at. So, you guys, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit subscribe because every time we pop up live, I want you guys to know we got live commitments coming this week. So hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel, and we will see you later on.